Alright guys, I gotta go take a shower. And then, oh, I can see myself. See, look, my hair looks crazy. I gotta go shower and then make my final my goodness, I have a Franken truck head. All right, I'll be doing my thoughts.
At lovedreamingpeach.com.
Hello, my lovely peaches, and how are you? Welcome and welcome back. So, I cannot believe it although actually I can actually totally believe it, and I think the jury got it right. The jury got it right. Karen Read trial, hung jury, which also means a mistrial, which also means she was not found not guilty. She was not found not guilty. The jurors could not agree, and they were not able to come to a unanimous decision. So that's it. This trial is over. Almost 10 weeks. I think it was 35 days total, not counting all the pretrial stuff. And she is not technically free because the Commonwealth shortly put out a statement shortly after saying that they do intend to retry this case. And her defense team said they intend to fight that. So this video will be about that. All right, guys, so I don't want to make this too long. I already have about a half an hour worth of bits and pieces of today, some that I screen recorded from Law and Crime, some that I screen recorded from Peter Tragos, lawyer you know, and then, so I just want to give my thoughts, and then I'm going to just show those clips, and then there was some, I think it was like CBS Boston or something like that. It shows you where it's from, where some of their investigators or journalists were also talking about it. And then, so I'm going to just go ahead and add the 10 minutes where the jurors were still deliberating. They came back. She gave them the TUI instruction. Then they came back again and they said that they were at an impasse. She read their statement. She said it's a mistrial. They set the next date for July 22nd, and Alan Jackson and Elizabeth Little are going to be in LA doing some other hearings. So it's going to just be Yannetti with his client, Karen Read, and Alan Jackson and Elizabeth are supposedly apparently still going to stay on, although Peter does point out something like it sounds like that might still be up in the air. And whether or not, even though the Commonwealth or Prosecutor Lally through his statement said they do intend to retry this, it's possible that they'll change their mind. So what are my thoughts ultimately about this case and the verdict? Well, ultimately, I believe that the jury is correct. And what I mean by that is watching the trial, listening to all the various streams, all the various lawyers, all the various opinions, reading the comments, watching the polls day after day, seeing how the numbers were coming in, 75% for not guilty, 85, 95, seeing how there was a definitive split. I would say it was like 2/3 to 1/3 of, or let's say even maybe half was saying she was not guilty, 1/3 was saying they just don't know, and another, not 1/3, half was saying not guilty, 1/4 saying they don't know, and 1/4 saying guilty. Or whatever. Maybe we'll find out what the actual jury count was. The fact is they don't have to tell us, unlike when it's unanimous and then they poll the jury and everybody has to say yes or no. When it's split, apparently the jurors have, shockingly, some privacy, I guess, some protection, so that they don't become targets of citizens who disagree with their opinion. Makes sense to me. Water break. So why I believe that the jury was correct is because the jury is made up of people who have a right to have an opinion. It really disheartened me and made me feel sad and upset and disheartened. I said that twice. To see people in the comment section, to see people in the press conferences on the after, the interviews, saying if jurors can't understand science, then they shouldn't be on a jury. Or if you don't have intelligence past the 6th grade level, then you shouldn't be on a jury. Well, I strongly disagree with all of that. If you haven't been past the 6th grade level, well, you're still part of a jury of your peers, means people who live in the society with you. You do not have to be an expert. You do not have to be super versed or educated or skilled or knowledgeable in any particular area to be a juror. You just have to be impartial, and you have to be true to what you believe. So having somebody shouting in your face that you're wrong, how could you believe that, and then you caving, that means that you shouldn't have been on the jury in the first place. And the person who's shouting and trying to force somebody else to change their mind, they also shouldn't be on a jury, because the point of the jury is for each person to individually come to their own personal decision based on what they think is relevant, the science that they agree with. People are out here like, science, but it's like, science is an art. Scientists are human beings who are completely 100% capable of bias, of error of judgment, of prejudice, of preconceived notions, of just being flat out wrong, or of just not doing a good job. And then as the juror, or like the potential juror, we get to weigh the evidence. We get to weigh each witness. We get to measure individually whether or not we think they're credible. Some people think that Trooper Proctor is still credible despite the unbelievably incredible, just couth, disgusting stuff that he said, and yet they still wanted to hold some weight of what he did. Similar with Trooper Paul. Some people want, Karen in the comments, that's a funny name. Karen in the comments said, oh, he was an idiot. I didn't think about anything he said, but yet I took this report that he did and then I used it to measure poops. It's like, okay. But Karen in the comments gets to do that. And so does the people who were on the actual jury. To insult people because they have a different opinion than you, I find to be a very low level thing to do, because insisting that your view is the only view, that's a low level of intelligence in my opinion, because that means that you cannot fathom that someone else might perceive it differently, or might put more weight on something than you do, or might trust this person over that person. Some people believe beyond any doubt in their mind that Jen McCabe was Googling how's long to die in cold at 2:27 a.m. But then other people like me think that that's absolute bullshit. There's a lot of things that the defense tried to spin that I found to be totally not credible, and actually going too far, and actually unnecessary. And I think that that's a big part of why they didn't get the slam dunk win, because their case, their theory, their strategy was too out there, and it was just too many people that they were blaming, and it was too much of a corrupt web, and it was just unnecessary in my opinion. And the prosecution feel like I'm talking like really high pitched. The prosecution, let me have another sip of water. I feel like the prosecution should have called about 40 less witnesses. They should have tried to complete their case in chief in about 5 days or less. I truly believe that talk faster, be more concise, stop repetitive stuff. Why are you bringing up stuff that's not necessary? And why are you busy trying to disprove the most ridiculous defense theories? You're wasting time. You're wearing people out. You're wearing them down. You're wearing them down to a frickin' nub. You know, you're literally wearing down their will. You know what, dude? I was listening. I was gathering the evidence, but you wore my freaking will down, and now I don't even have a hand left to vote. I don't know. I am so confused and spun around that I simply cannot agree. But what the judge read was that they were deeply divided. Some people strongly believing that she did actually do it, and other people strongly believing that she couldn't have. People shouting, the science proves there's no way she could have ever hit him. Well, they actually didn't say the science proves that it's utterly impossible, 100% no chance. They never said that. So people saying that that's what they said, that's not what they said. What they said is that it's highly unlikely, extremely unlike the usual. It's a very, very low chance, like small chance. But the fact is, the man was dead with a cracked skull in the snow. So my ultimate theory, what I think really happened, is Karen Reed hit John O'Keefe with her SUV. I could even go as far as to believe, this is the version that I think, if I were a prosecutor, what I would be trying to prove is this. Karen Reed was very unhappy in her relationship with John O'Keefe. She was miserable, she was jealous, she was struggling with health issues that were embarrassing and shameful. She was angry, she thought that he was cheating, but then again, there's evidence that maybe she knew he wasn't cheating. It seems like she was unhinged. It seems like she maybe was drinking a lot. It seemed like maybe she thought that she could just say, fuck you. She had a really short temper. She seemed to quickly blow a fuse and then think maybe she could just band-aid it off by throwing money at it. She was volatile. She was unhinged. She was relentless. So I would also point out that although we can only go back about a month before his death, we don't know how long this was going on in their 2-year-some relationship, but from the last month of his life, we were able to piece together a picture of an extremely volatile relationship with a woman who had an extremely short fuse, who would fly off and say, fuck you, fuck off, instantly to a complete stranger. She seemed to be extremely jealous to an unhinged level. We were also able to show through evidence that while on one hand, Karen was trying to paint a picture that she was this loving, super generous woman who just wants to do the best thing for John's kids, she also was behind the scenes trying to cheat on John and telling someone else that John was cheating on her with the woman that she claimed he was cheating on her with in Aruba, but yet she told that woman and that woman's sister that she knew that it was a mistake. And she apologized and she wanted to pay for that so-called mistress' room. But yet she was behind the scenes. She's telling Brian Higgins that John's a cheater while she herself is trying to cheat. Then what else do we know? We know that Karen resented the fact that those children were in John's life, and she thought that his family should be responsible for those kids. And in fact, she never even wanted kids, and she didn't think that she should be having to deal with any of this. So we know that for a whole month from New Year's Eve in Aruba in 2022, they flew back on January 5th, a couple of days early, cutting their vacation short, claiming they had to get back in time for the kids. Although people always know what time kids are getting back to school. So they obviously were fighting. They were not getting along. This is going back a month before this man's death. The day that he died, the day before he died, there's evidence that Karen and John were arguing via Facebook messages. She was text messaging him. She was calling him relentlessly. He was begging her to leave him alone, stop calling him, let him take care of his children. But yet at the same time, he was sending her mixed messages and saying, hey, but I thought you were going to come here for the weekend. And why didn't you ask me to help fix the thing wrong with your shower? And so she was still willing and trying to reconcile. We'll never really know what was in Karen's mind. But we do know that that whole day and leading into that night, Karen was pissed. Karen was relentlessly trying to get through to John, trying to call John. John was begging her, stop calling me, stop texting me, leave me alone. I don't want to argue anymore. Karen was trying to get John to acknowledge, to commit to the fact that he was no longer invested in this relationship, but he didn't do that. In fact, he wanted her to come for the weekend, was offering to help her on Monday, wanted her to stay in Canton at his place, wanted her to join him later that night, which is exactly what she did. But that night, while it's true that the video shows us that at the bar they were getting along just fine, we also know that she was ignoring Brian Higgins, who just a few days before she was trying to have him come to her house to have sex with her, despite the fact that she was still actively, supposedly trying to work it out with John. And then they were invited to go to a party where Brian Higgins was going to be present. He was present. So it was only natural that Karen would not want to go into this party, a much more intimate place than a big bar where there's 30 people and she can easily bounce around and ignore Brian Higgins. But in the house at 34 Fairview Drive, at Brian Albert's house, where Brian Higgins was going to be in a small, intimate setting with Brian Albert and his wife, his wife was Heather, I think. That might not be accurate, but so it's like a much smaller, intimate house party, family party. Just a handful of people who are all closely related, intimately related. There's no ignoring Brian Higgins at their house party like she could do at the Waterfall Bar and Grill. Now Karen was suddenly going to be faced with, am I going to fake the funk? How am I going to fake this? So what does she do? She says, I don't want to go in. My stomach hurts, which tracks because she often has stomach issues. The kids are home. Now she's suddenly the caring stepmom-ish. Either way, it's a valid concern. It could be true. How will we ever know? Was her stomach really hurting? Was her stomach hurting because she had to go to the bathroom? Was her stomach hurting because she was nervous as fuck that John was about to find out that she was trying to cheat on him with Brian Higgins and telling Brian that John had cheated on her with this other person in Aruba when she probably already had multiple conversations with John? acknowledging to John, hey, I know nothing happened. I thought I saw something I didn't see. That's what Laura Sullivan testified to, that Karen came up to her the next day saying, so I'm sorry. I thought I saw something I didn't see. Can I pay for her room? No, Laura said, you don't need to pay for the room, but you can apologize. And Karen said, but I'm going to apologize. So was Karen telling John, I know, I was just drunk. I was in a puddle and I thought I saw something I didn't see. I know it. But now behind the scenes, she's telling Brian Higgins that he's cheating on her. But then when Brian Higgins pushes her and asks for details, now she's defensive. It doesn't matter. Brian Higgins thought it mattered, but she was pushing off because she didn't want to have to explain the details. Although when she showed up to Brian Higgins' house, he testified that she was acting real weird and talking more about getting cheated on in Aruba. So for all of those reasons, it's possible we'll never know what Karen was thinking. Was her stomach hurting and she wanted to go take care of these kids? She never wanted to have her responsibility. Was she literally going to say, I'm going to go home and take care of these kids and take care of my stomach while you go to the party, bye? Or was she like, I don't want to go, let's just go home? And he was like, what's wrong with you? I want to go. He got out. They were fighting. He threw the glass that he had, that we saw on the videos, that they walked into the bar with. She took it out of her coat. Then he took it when they left. We saw him walk out the bar with the glass. We know he had it. Did he throw it at her in anger and hit the taillight? Did she throw it at him? Did he get out of the thing? But if she threw it at his head, then he would have had glass in his head. If he threw it at the taillight, then there probably would have been more glass in the taillight and the glass would have been right there. But so, okay, back to what I think could have happened. Somehow, maybe she rolled over the very tiny edge of his shoe where it didn't get his toe, but it ripped that shoe off, and the ventricular force of the cannon and the centrifuge and it flung him, and he banged his head on something hard, and just somehow magically, that's what I'm saying. Somehow she hit this motherfucker. She's out of there. She noticed she hit him, or she didn't notice she hit him. So this is what I was thinking. Okay, I'm getting a little off because it's kind of like getting lost in the details of, but what really happened? But back to, I'm the Commonwealth and I'm trying to pursue this. Okay, so there she is. She's like, I'm not going in this house party. And he's like, I am. He gets out. She angrily backs up and pulls away. And in some freak of nature, she incapacitates him in a way where he cracks his skull and she leaves the scene. Now, let's just assume she doesn't really know at that moment. Okay, at this moment, this is a involuntary vehicular manslaughter, let's say, with a DUI. Okay, but she doesn't know it. I could believe that. But then maybe she does know it. Maybe she realizes she hit him. This is the other thing I could say. I could believe possibly. She didn't mean to hit him. She wasn't trying to hit him. But when she angrily pulled out and backs up, and as a few commenters, Karen in the comments have commented, she backed up for X amount of feet, 60 some feet, at X amount of miles per hour. And then she moved, okay, so we know from some car data that she did back up. So somehow in there, she hit him enough not to bruise him up and to shred him up and to fucking break all his bones, but somehow his head got cracked enough to incapacitate him where he could not get up and call for help. And she pulled off. And this is the crux of my thoughts. She didn't mean to hit him, but when she realized she hit him, she pulled away angrily in a drunken rage. Or, alternatively, she pulled away in a drunken rage, not realizing she hit him. And either one, at some point, she's leaving him messages, she's angry, So theory one would be, she didn't mean to hit him, but she did. And then after she hit him, she left him there. And then she realized, oh fuck, I hit him. I need to make it look like I didn't know I did it. And then she started to leave a bunch of unhinged messages. And that was to cover up the fact that she hit him by accident and she wanted to make it seem like she didn't know she did. That's theory one. Theory two would be, she didn't know that she hit him. For sure. She didn't know. She hit him, but she didn't mean to, and she didn't know. But then, when she kept calling him angrily, and he wouldn't respond, she started to wonder where he was. And then she was calling her friends. But this is the thing. It's like, okay, so yesterday I started to go down the rabbit hole of Sarah Boone that I was absolutely like, I'm not going to. But then I started to, and I saw that, oh my God, she's really evil. But that crazy, I had a terrible bruise on my leg, probably I think from making the chair. Sarah Boone recorded herself mocking in a drunken, slurred stupor, mocking poor George Torres suffering, suffocating, dying in that suitcase and saying, fuck you, this is what you get. She was so fucking drunk, she did not even remember. She was like, here, take my phone. Go look at the videos. Go look at them. And they were like, oh, we did. Why don't you take a look too? And she was like, no, I don't want to see it. What? No. The point I'm getting at is that, oh, my neck. Ugh. I saw with my own eyes a woman who literally recorded evidence of her murdering, killing her boyfriend. Like, willfully leaving that man suffering, suffocating, and like, this is what you get. Intentional, malicious. Which is what she said. She's sick. She was like, not intentional. She said, not malicious. Like in the most malicious way. You tricked me. I had a sneaking suspicion this was going to happen when she was getting arrested. Like, girl, you are touched by not an angel. Oh, and then I thought at one point she said they called her the blue-eyed devil. But then when she said it again, the blue-eyed dragon. And I'm like, wait, did I mishear? Or did she literally say two different things? Like, she's so corny, she's so cringe, but to the level of like murder. Ugh. Okay, but my point was, people do crazy shit when they're drunk and they literally forget. So I could potentially believe that Karen Reed actually did hit him in a drunken rage and kind of knew it, but then like forgot. Just like Sarah Boone, she kind of knew she was taking a video, right? Like, she picked the phone up, she opened the camera app, she's holding the phone, she presses record, she's got him in the fucking screen, she's talking, she's responding. It's like, then there's two videos, they're 11 minutes apart, and apparently there's some photos, but I was not able to find them anywhere. I scoured last night, I couldn't find them anywhere, because I was like, I swear I thought I saw a photo or a video where he was like clearly upstairs in the suitcase, but then he was downstairs in two different positions, but I couldn't find it anywhere. But anyway, I'm like, she had to have some level of awareness that she was doing this. So, okay, or maybe not. Okay, so that's the thing. Like, did Karen actually angrily hit John in a complete drunken rage in a moment of passion, or by accident because she was zooming away, or she didn't know it and it was an accident unbeknownst to her? But the point I'm trying to get at is that then I could totally believe that whether it was on purpose in that heat of the moment, by accident and she knew it, or by accident and she didn't know it. I think that by the time she realized it, she was like, let me do everything I can to create an alibi to make it seem like I didn't know and I didn't do it. And then, you know, people are also extremely angry that she's like framing other people and then claiming that they're framing her. But what I want to know is, did she only start pointing fingers at other people when she got arrested, accused of doing it? Not to say that that makes it better. I'm just saying there's a slight difference in my mind from immediately accusing somebody else of a crime you did or something that you were accused of before you're accused of it, before being accused saying so-and-so did it, versus you got arrested and your defense is trying to come up with any plausible, reasonable doubt. So they start throwing out daggers. I just think there's a bit of a distinction. Yeah, it's still a low blow. And again, so if I were Prosecutor Lolly, if I was going to try to charge her, I would charge her at most with DUI, vehicular manslaughter under the influence, leaving the scene of a fatal crime. And then I would focus on, you know, this was a very volatile person in a very volatile situation. And the day before this happened, she was unhinged and relentless. And John was beyond patient and extending more and more and more chances to try to make this relationship work. And yet it seemed that whatever happened, whatever they argued about, whatever really was the actual circumstances, the fact of the matter is when she pulled away from that house, John did not end up inside the house. He ended up dead on the lawn. And all the people who were in that house testified that he was never in that house. But then you got to talk about, but then we had a shady fucking Trooper Proctor investigating, who instantaneously either thought she was guilty or was ready to pin it on her. So that's kind of a problem. And then there was the fact that they never did a thorough investigation, really, not in a way that was documented. The night that the cop who pulled up, he should have had a body cam. And if he had a body cam and he had walked up to the body and to the SUV, well, the SUV wasn't there. No, the SUV was not right in front of John, but the SUV was at the scene, wasn't it? Didn't they drive in Karen's SUV? Wasn't Jen McCabe driving with Carrie Roberts and Karen in the back seat of Karen's SUV? Was she driving the SUV? Or did they get into... I'm pretty sure that Jen was driving Karen's SUV, so Karen's SUV was at the scene. So I think it's possible that when Karen said, I hit him, did I hit him, could I have hit him? They could have gone immediately to her car with their body cams if they had had them and taken body cams of it right there. As well, they should have taken body cams and video footage of them approaching her vehicle when they went to get it from her parents' house. Again, another failed investigative hole. No, the SUV wasn't there. But if he had walked up to the body, he would have looked down and he could have shown on his body cam what evidence, what broken glass was there on his arm. Walk up to that body and flip that arm over and show me right there. You walked up to his body and you showed a bloody arm with pieces of broken glass all scattered around. Obviously, the broken rocks glass on the rocks. The broken rocks glass on the rocks or on the ice or on the snow. Show me the bloody scene. Show me that you guys, yes, it was snowing. Yes, it was a blizzard. Yes, it was dark. Yes, it was windy and blustery. But you set up your police vehicles. You made a perimeter with 3 or 4 police vehicles, and then you got a big tent. You got a tarp. You've got strong men who were trained in a police academy. You've got investigators. You've got resources. You don't know how this man died. You don't know how this man ended up here. But they immediately made assumptions and they cleared it out. How do you have a scene, a crime scene? So that's something I saw on the body cam footage of Sarah Boone. Sarah wanted her drink and she was like, it's right in there on the counter. And the cop was like, that's a crime scene. I can't go in there and contaminate it. No. And then she said, well, can I have a cigarette? They're on the back porch. The cop was like, nope. Entire scene cannot be contaminated. There's no going in. They had a big caution crime scene tape going from one side of the bush all the way on the other side of the house, all the way around. It's blocking off the sidewalk, everything, the perimeter of the house. Because it's a crime scene now and someone is dead and we don't know how. Same with John O'Keefe. Why was John's death? He was obviously dead in a way that came from violent something or other because he had a crack in his skull. So it's not like the man had a heart attack and he keeled over and he died in the snow. Okay? It's not like those fentanyl guys at the Chiefs game. 3 young guys, they all died from hypothermia. Oh, they were on fentanyl. So sad, but we understand what happened. This is a situation where this man has blunt force trauma, fractures on his skull. He's dead on the lawn. Why? So, I kind of got off on like trying to prove it because there's all this reasonable doubt of like, how do you prove it? What do you try to prove? But why didn't you do the investigation? This is my whole thing. Even if Lolly wants to try it again, like he said he is intending to do, you can't go back in time and get the footage. You can't go back in time and have body cam footage that shows Karen Reed running around like a lunatic saying, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. Show the footage where she said it unequivocally in her own words with her own mouth and let those jurors decide. She's saying this distressed because she hit him. She's saying this distressed because doesn't know what happened. She's saying, did I hit him? Did I hit him? Did I hit him? Or I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. But without any video footage, without credible witnesses, and as much as I kind of thought that Jen McCabe was kind of sort of, what if any, a little bit maybe credible, the fact of the matter is that she was answering things in a completely defensive way, and she was coming across as really sus and suspicious. And I was like, you know what, as much as grace as I'm giving her and saying, well, I believe that if she truly did nothing wrong and it was totally innocent, I would be pissed and I would be irritated too. But if you don't know how to like shelf your utter contempt and disdain for the defense attorneys, for the defendant, and even in a way for the process, then you're going to come off as not credible and people are going to have fuel to add to their fire of a conspiracy theory, you know. And then there's the fact of all the butt dials that nobody admitted to or acknowledged that were like timed really kind of weird, and that just creates reasonable doubt that no one can answer. There's, you know, destroyed SIM cards and smashed phones that were disappeared the day before they were about to get a court order saying, don't smash your phone, don't disappear your phone. But yet they magically knew the day before to get rid of it. How does that not look suspicious? How come none of those EMTs, none of those cops, none of the witnesses, none of the bystanders, the morning that John was found, none of them found pieces of glass? Somebody said, Karen in the comments said they had microscopic pieces of plastic in his shirt, but why didn't they show a photo of that? Why didn't they show a video of that? Why didn't they document that? People said this and that, but if you don't document it, then it's a lot harder to prove the credibility of that. And you cannot go back in time and get that stuff done. So I feel that maybe if they charged her with a DUI and leaving the scene of a fatal crime, again, how do you prove definitively that she hit him? Like I said, I have a gut feeling and an instinct, and I have like a hunch. I feel like it just makes the most sense, despite the science and the scientists and Crash Daddy and googly eyes and heart eyes for Crash Daddy and that other guy. That doesn't mean that everything they said was 100% infallible and 100% true. Maybe, I mean, I feel that it's kind of obvious, like she had to have hit him. How would he end up there? The thing I said before this trial ever started is the same exact thing I feel right now, and I saw somebody write it in a comment. Even if they did murder that man, why would they put him on their own front lawn? What sense does that make? None. I said that before trial started. Even if they did beat him up, he got attacked by the dog accidentally, which was so clearly not fatal. So the dog scratches his arm, so they murder him? What sense does that make? Oh no, they're murdering him. They're hitting him in the back of the head with a bat. Why? Because Brian Higgins thought that Karen was hot and he was texting her back when she initiated it. I don't believe it. That makes no sense. No. And that brings me back to, well, yes, it does make the most sense that the only person who really had any anger toward him at that level would have been Karen, and she was obviously probably drunk and very volatile, flying off the fuck yous like it was, $5 bills, and that doesn't really make sense, but you know what I'm saying? Like $5 bills at a freaking, or single dollar bills at a strip show, she's like, and you get a fuck you, you get a fuck you, you get a fuck you, you get to go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? Like, and then therefore it's believable that because she has a volatile personality and a short temper, and she's angry and she's jealous and she's unhinged and she's drunk, that she drove off really quickly, and whether she meant to or not, somehow she hit that motherfucker and he landed on the ground where no one was able to see him. He was on the lawn in the dark in a blizzard where nobody would ever think to look for someone. It's not a point of interest per se. It's on the lawn off to the side. It's not right there on the road where they have to look to come and go. It's not in their line of sight as they're coming out of the house. He was not laying on the porch, or literally like wasn't Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman, they were like literally laying in the path, right? And one was on the lawn and one was on the path. Like, if I remember correctly, there was like a neighbor walking her dog who walked by who happened to see one of the bodies. And that's not how John was. And again, Kerry Roberts and Jen McCabe saying Karen knew exactly where he was when they pulled up in there. He was in the snow. So does that mean she hit him? She left him there. She knew where he was. She wanted to discover his body with other people so she wouldn't have been alone. There'll be witnesses and stuff. she didn't know where he was because she had left him there, or had she, drunkenly blacked it out, a la Sarah Boone video style. But then as they're driving up to the scene, she's starting to have flashbacks of what happened. And suddenly she's like, oh my fucking God, he's there. He is. Like, that wasn't a fucking dream I had in a drunken stupor. That was real. Like, maybe she was so drunk that she totally lost sense of all reality. She hit him in a drunken fucking rage. She left the scene. She fell asleep thinking that it was a bad dream. Who knows? I don't know. But then she was calling. It is very confusing. And it is very, like, that's what I'm saying. I could believe that she hit him and then covered up the fact that she hit him. I could believe that. How exactly Lolly would get me there, I feel like I don't know exactly, but I would certainly remove a huge chunk, 50-70% of the case that he put on. Get rid of it. Streamline it. Make it as concise as you can. Maybe show that they argued. Maybe show the text messages. Show that she was volatile. Show that she was trying to cheat behind the back. But then don't try to say that it was second-degree murder, And I don't know exactly, like, if you got involuntary manslaughter with a DUI enhancement and then enhancement, like leaving the scene of a fatal crime. I don't know what it might all add up to, 10, 15 years in jail, not life. But if you really truly believe that this woman, like, she knew that she hit this man and she covered it up to try to get off with it, then, go that way. That's streamline. Just point out that, don't try to make it this big whole other thing. And, or just charge her with DUI, vehicular manslaughter. I don't know. Then if I was on the defense side, I would drop the whole third-party culprit. I would focus solely on reasonable doubt. I would say, well, we had Crash Daddy and Bioengineer Dude. They said that the chances of his injuries being from a vehicular crash are almost none. I wouldn't even bother with the scratches part. I wouldn't bring Dr. Russell back, as charming as she was. I would just say there was no glass in his wounds. There was no blood on the SUV. There was no DNA or blood on the glass or the SUV, except for a hair. But that was his girlfriend's SUV. They were not able to prove that there was any actual blood or DNA right in the part of the SUV that they claimed hit him. They didn't document it well. They don't have any video cam footage. They don't have any actual photographs that show the big view, the zoomed in view. They don't have timestamps. They don't have good enough evidence. Their evidence was weak. They have a vile ass trooper. They've got, accident reconstructionists who say things like, how did it happen? It just did, and stuff. I don't know. It's not reliable. It's not credible. They didn't use any real science. And then the witnesses who use the real science say it doesn't look like it could have been an accident, that he got hit by a car. So even if you think on the most off chance that she did hit him with her car, she obviously didn't know. Look at how distraught she was. Look at how she was calling everybody she could to try to figure out where was he. She was calling him. She was so obviously, clearly not thinking he was dead in the snow, but thinking he was out cheating on her with another woman. And while that might be proof that she's unhinged, and it might be proof that she's jealous and insecure, It's also proof that she didn't know that he was dead or that he was injured in the snow. It's proof that if somehow she did accidentally, on the most rare, tragic misfortune, that she hit this man while she was leaving, yes, she drove away from the scene. No, don't say that. She drove away from the house because she was upset that he was going in, despite the fact that she was in pain, having stomach issues, needed to go take care of herself, and then was going to have to go home and take care of herself and then be responsible for his teenage daughter. So of course she was upset with John. It was late. It's after midnight. They'd already been, that was the second bar they'd been to that night. Yet he couldn't let it go and go home with her so she could take care of herself and he could take care of the niece, instead of her having to take care of herself and the niece, who's not even really her daughter. But whatever, that's beside the point, okay? But so she was angry. Whether we like her or not, she was angry, and she felt that this was really unfair. So she pulled off away before he got into the house, because you know what? She didn't feel like waiting to see him go in. She didn't even think it was right that he was going in. And I just had another idea. Then what I would add, if I was the defense, I would say, in fact, John was also so angry that she didn't want to go into the party, that as she pulled away, she did hear a little crash because he threw the glass at her. And when it hit the back of her SUV and it went boom, she knew that he was throwing the glass at her. So she pulled away because she didn't want to get into anything even more volatile than that. And that is what happened. But then when she kept calling and he wouldn't answer, although yes, it's true that she, even that day, the day before, she called and he mostly didn't answer, but he would text her back. He would answer. He did answer a few. So she started to panic because what's going on? What's happening? Why won't he answer at all? And yes, it's true, she should have gone to bed. She should have relaxed, but that's not what she did. Instead, she started to call her friends and say, oh my God, what's going on? John and I had a fight and I don't know where he is now. And the unfortunate events, she did discover that in fact, she must have hit him. Did I hit him? Oh my God. When they came upon the house where she had left him and angrily pulled away and felt her car go because he threw the glass at her, she discovered that there he laid, and her mind went crazy. Oh my God, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Did I hit him? Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Folks, it was a complete tragedy, but it was also an accident. And it was a rare combination of, they were arguing, it was a blizzard, it was loud with the wind, it was dark, she was drinking, that's true. No, don't say that part. They were arguing, and when John threw the glass at the SUV, the impact masked the fact that somehow he as well, he didn't let go enough, and it just knocked him just enough to hit his head on the ground, and it cracked his skull. And while those injuries in themselves were not fatal at that moment, unfortunately, as he lay there, unbeknownst to Karen or anyone else, the people who were waiting for him in the party, who assumed, oh, they must have decided to leave as they drove away. They saw Karen drive away, and they didn't see John outside because he was down. But Karen also didn't know because she was angry. He had thrown the glass at her vehicle. That masked the sound and the thump and the bump. And next thing you knew, It was 4 something in the morning. She was panicked because John wasn't there. And that set off the series of events that led her to discover, tragically, John in the snow on the lawn where she had dropped him off to go to a party that night. So, my friends, it's tragic that a man lost his life. A man who was a role model for society, a role model in his family, a beacon of hope, a pillar of strength, a beloved father, brother, son, friend, uncle. And the loss of this man is not ever going to feel okay. But putting a woman in prison for a wild and tragic 1 in a billion circumstance. Don't do it! I don't know. So, yeah, I mean, if Lolly actually tries to retry her again for 2nd-degree murder, I don't know. Where's he going to get some better evidence? Is it true that he has to put on the same theory of the case? I would imagine that doesn't make sense. Like, why would you put on a losing strategy? Just like Donna Adelson, who's coming up next soon, and who's up next? We got Alec Baldwin, I think July 22nd as well, and I don't know, I think it's in September, Donna Adelson, but it's like, why would you go with the same lawyer whose strategy literally lost and got your son Charlie life without the possibility of parole? You know, but hey, if it's broke, don't fix it. I don't know. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it ain't fixed, break it. No, wait. So yes, these are my thoughts, and you know, it feels like I could not imagine that it will be easy to find another jury of impartial people who are willing and able to sit through this whole thing again. That's what I'm saying. If Lolly is seriously going to try to put this thing on, he needs to streamline this shit down, like make it 1/10 of what it was. Or maybe he needs to plead deal down. Like maybe you need to realize you do not have enough evidence to prove. And if you truly believe that she wanted this man dead, like, you never proved why, you never proved a motive, you never proved how that benefited her in any way. I mean, yes, to cover up the fact that she was trying to cheat and lying, but like that is just so much not enough for murder. Like, I don't know, I'm not getting that the benefits of her killing. That's the question. Who benefits? She didn't benefit from it. How did she benefit? She didn't gain any financial benefit. She didn't gain any kind of notoriety. She didn't write a book about grief, how to get over your dead husband after she fed him a fentanyl sandwich. She didn't get to move to Miami Beach from butt-fuck Tallahassee, where she didn't want to be with a bunch of idiots. She, didn't make up a bunch of lies to hide the fact that she's insane, and she put her boyfriend in a suitcase because she's like evil and vindictive and she left him there to die, and she's covering that up. Like, what does Karen Reed benefit by having John gone? She wanted to be with him. What I got out of this whole trial was that, yes, Karen is volatile. Yes, she needs some anger management. She probably needs some substance abuse treatments. She needs therapy. She probably needs to take care of her medical conditions. She probably needs to get back to work. or, you know, do some investments so she can use her time better. And if she's seriously going to be charged with this crime again, she needs to also, I mean, I don't know how much more they could streamline. I mean, they streamlined a lot, but I feel like a big part of why the defense's case was so streamlined was because Lally put on 45 witnesses for the defense. So, you know, Alan and Unetti didn't have to. Ultimately, though, I feel like the Commonwealth of Massachusetts would like weigh the cost involved, the time and effort and energy, the stress on the community, and ultimately all for what? Like, you're trying to prove that someone murdered this man, but the evidence and the investigation was so shoddy and so poor, and there's just some things that you just cannot go back in time. You cannot go back in time and get those people to write down, she said this. You can't get them to put on body cams and go back to the moment and walk up on John's body and show what actually was the scene. What did Karen actually say? What did her, my kids are back there. What did her SUV actually look like the moment that the cops walked up to it? Not hours later in a video that's inverted and a bunch of jump cuts of time missing. Like, you know, no matter how much people feel convinced that she probably did it, I feel that it's important that the system that puts people in jail is held to a really high standard and professionalism. And yet at the same time, I do believe that at the end of it all, it is right for the professionalism and the credibility and the truthfulness and the accuracy and the value of the evidence and the witnesses and the testimony should be up to a group of 12 average people, not super intelligent people, not expert people, not people who know every single thing in and out of this case from the A to Z and the 1, 2, 3 and the infinity. I think that the system is a pretty decent system, and that the fact that the jury was unable to agree unanimously is the right thing, because the case is not clear. And trying to insist that people see clearly through a very muddy window is more disingenuous, I believe, than admitting that it's not clear and that some people feel strongly this way, but other people feel strongly another way. And to discredit that other people feel differently than you just because it's not what you think or feel, I feel that that is more of an insult, and it's more of an actual, like I saw somebody say, anybody who can't see that this or that, then they obviously haven't got past 6th grade level. Well, anybody who thinks that just because someone else doesn't agree with you is someone you can insult, or someone who you can say, you know, is stupid, or that they're childish or whatever, crazy, this or that, then you obviously are lacking the emotional intelligence as well as the academic awareness that even in the most highest level of experts, there's disagreement. There is not this one truth that everybody knows and agrees with in science or anything. So people who try to push science as if it's some type of, you know, infallible system are, to me, just as fundamentalists, just as off the frickin' thing as people who claim religious beliefs are, you know, absolutely the one and all and everything. It's like, people are allowed and have a right and are here to have their own thoughts. And that's what exactly the jury was meant to be. A pool of people who have different opinions. And when you can get a bunch of different opinion, like in Charlie Adelson's situation in his trial, 3 hours, which included like an hour-long lunch. They were like, bip, boppity, boop, motherfucker is guilty as a mofo. We don't have any doubt. None of us are confused. None of us believed his lies. None of us thought that his version was true. None of us believe the defense. We all see clearly, Charlie, you are a guilty motherfucker. You are a murderer. Boom, boom, boom. That's how it should be. All these people from wherever, different life styles, different belief systems, different all across the board, they were able to believe it and see it and know that it's true. Same with Hannah Gutierrez. Same, even though it's civil and not criminal. Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. Unanimous. So the fact that it's not unanimous is not the fault of the jurors. Lowley was way too much. He tried, his case was too much crap. It was too muddy, and it was so much, it was like literally vomiting everything that he could. How are people supposed to make clear, concise understanding when you vomited 8,000 million pages of shit at them, and then they're supposed to make sense of it? And then you had Alan Jackson, who was, in many ways, I feel like he was just totally incredible as far as like, that's just outrageous, but also clear, concise, passionate, believable. The doubt was believable. So those are my thoughts. This probably ended up way longer than I wanted it to be, but I guess I had a lot to say. I could probably say a lot more. Would I want to cover it if they actually do it again? Well, my God. I mean, I guess I would. You know, and I was actually thinking earlier, like, so am I going to go now and start, you know, watching a bunch of stuff? I probably will take a break and I'll start to maybe, you know, work a little bit on that Wendy Adelson, although, like, I'm so sick of her. I don't even know if I have it in me to do any more, unless they arrest that bitch. If you want to see the 45 minutes that I transcribed, it's on my Patreon and or membership. It's like 45 minutes of, it's the second chunk of her police interview. After the first 35-minute chunk, I did a long video on, and then I made the chunk of transcribed police interview with her and Detective Isom. But as far as reading it and doing reactions, you know, I don't know if I'm going to have the energy to do that ever again. But maybe if she gets arrested. So now I'm going to be looking forward to the Alec Baldwin trial, the Donald Adelson trial. I'll be looking to Corey Richins, Aaron Patterson. Is anything gonna happen with Scott Patterson, that freaking creep, and he's trying to like get a new trial? Oh yeah, Shanna Gardner. She may have murdered her ex-husband Jared Bridegan, and she's like, her parents are super, super rich. Aaron Patterson is the Australia mushroom lady who may have killed her ex-mom and dad, ex-in-laws and ex-in-law's sister. And she was probably going to kill the ex-husband, but he backed out at the last minute and also said that he thinks she tried to kill him once before. Corey Richins fed her husband a fentanyl sandwich, then wrote a child's book about grief. And there's that case. So on my Facebook, I had written a little thing of like the next cases I'm interested in case I missed any. Like I said, Wendy Adelson arrest watch. Wendy Adelson arrest watch. Which I'm going to keep it open in my rear view or whatever you call it. If it becomes 2025 and she hasn't been arrested, I give up all hope. I've already kind of given up all hope because I'm just like, I cannot imagine how they could just be okay with this woman getting away with murder and being rewarded by raising the children of the man that she freaking killed and getting to live in Miami on the beach where she wanted to, that he didn't want her to. He wanted her to stay in Tallahassee, so she had her murdered so she could get the fuck out of town and not have to give back any of the $600,000 or $700,000 she stole from him. And the whole fucking bullshit. So anyway, that pisses me off. But what am I gonna do? I don't know. Make another video, maybe. Oh yeah, I was gonna put my clock, but I forgot. Okay, so next I will play the screen recordings that I took today of the last bits of jury deliberation, the judge's instructions, and then the judge reading the jury's note that they cannot come to a decision, and the judge saying it's a mistrial, and then some thoughts from Peter Tragos and some Boston journalists reporting on the trial. So enjoy the rest of the video. It'll all just be screen recordings, and you can see on the screen recordings who to go follow based on where I got that from. So thank you, Peter Tragos. Thank you, Law and Crime. Thank you, CBS Boston or Boston 25, one of those. And please make your comments. Let me know what you thought. I was really hoping people would vote in the poll that I had on my community page where I said, what did you think? Guilty, not guilty, hung jury, or what was the last one I did? I don't know, but go ahead and vote in that poll. I'd like to know what people thought. All right, and see you. Enjoy the rest of the video. See you in the next one. Bye. So Judge Beverly Canoni has read what's called a Tui Rodriguez charge. I have Jay and Bob Mata and Ali Mata in the background. So hold on, let me pause that. Spinning in their wheels like a car tire spinning in the snow, going nowhere. So my understanding is that by the end of the day, the jury will come back with a hung jury, which is what they also call a mistrial. So what that means is if all the juries cannot unanimously agree, meaning everybody in the room agrees to whatever verdict, not guilty, guilty, or the lesser charges, then, and what their note said was that they were basically dead set in their views, and it's not because they don't understand the evidence, it's because they have fundamentally different views and opinions of that evidence. So she sent them back. You're only allowed to send jurors back 2 times. Then she read what's called like a Tui Rodriguez charge, which I'm going to play here. And so my understanding is that they will be back by the end of the day, and I'm quite sure it'll be a hung jury, which will be a mistrial, which means that the Commonwealth will have to decide, are they going to charge her again, or are they going to drop the charges, and will we ever find out what the split of the jurors was? I don't know, but here's what happened today so far. So now they're back in deliberation. Jury is in hour 23 of deliberation. It is local time, 11:26 a.m. The fan is spinning in the Norfolk courtroom.
That's a good question.
You are unmuted.
Thank you. We're back in session. May be seated.
We're back on the record on the Karen Reed, Your Honor. We've got a question from the jury.
All right. So, Mr. Lally, I'd like to hear from the Commonwealth first about due and thorough deliberations.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last one.
I'd like to hear from the Commonwealth first about your view on whether the jury has conducted due and thorough deliberations.
Your Honor, while I understand that they have been at this for a while, I would submit that they have not, and I would ask the court not to make such a finding. Reasons for that, Your Honor, this jury heard, I believe, about 29 days or so of testimony, 657 different exhibits marked as evidence, 74 different witnesses who testified before them. And while I believe they've been out for somewhere in the vicinity of 22 or 23 hours, what I would submit to the court based on all of that, as well as the complexity of the issues presented to them, they really haven't even had 1 hour of deliberation equivalent to 1 day of testimony, to each of the days of testimony that they've heard. So while they have been at it for a while, I would submit that based on the evidence and testimony and witnesses and the complexity of issues in this case, I would submit that they have not done a thorough deliberation up to this point.
Ms. Giannetti?
Our view is that it's time for Tui Rodriguez. They've come back now twice, indicating essentially that they're hopelessly deadlocked. The content of this latest message is that they have been over all the evidence. Previous message said they did an exhaustive review. This time they said that they have fundamental disagreements about what the evidence means, and it's a matter of opinion. It's not a matter of lack of understanding. This court, when you sent the jury out, encouraged them not to take a straw vote, encouraged them to go over all the evidence in a very methodical manner. I think all indications are that they've done that, and this is what Tui Rodriguez is for. We asked the court to get it.
Yeah. All right. I think this has been an extraordinary jury. I've never seen a note like this reporting to be at an impasse. I do find that they're now, with the additional time that they went out without coming back Friday saying that they were deadlocked, is due in thorough deliberation. So I'm going to give Tui Rodriguez. So are they ready to come in, Jody? So why don't I take a recess?
Take a recess, please. All right.
And then Nancy.
Court is in session. Please be seated.
All right. So, jurors, I am in receipt of your note. Judge Cannoni, despite our commitment to the duty entrusted to us, we find ourselves deeply divided by fundamental differences in our opinions and state of mind. The divergence in our views are not rooted in a lack of understanding or effort, but deeply held convictions that each of us carry, ultimately leading to a point where consensus is unattainable. We recognize the weight of this admission and the implications it holds. So, Mr. Foreman and members of the jury, I have an instruction for you. Our Constitution and laws provide that in a criminal case, the principal method for deciding questions of fact is the verdict of a jury. In most cases, and perhaps strictly speaking in all cases, absolute certainty cannot be attained, nor is it expected. The verdict to which each juror agrees must, of course, be his or her own verdict, the result of his or her own convictions, and not merely an acquiescence in the conclusions of the other jurors. Still, in order to bring 12 minds to a unanimous result, you must examine the issues you have to decide with candor and with a proper regard and respect for each other's opinions. You should consider that it is desirable that this case be decided. You have been selected in the same manner and from the same source as any future jury would be selected. There is no reason to suppose that this case will ever be submitted to 12 persons who are more intelligent, more impartial, or more competent to decide it than you are, or that more or clearer evidence will be produced at another trial. With all this in mind, it is your duty to decide this case if you can do so conscientiously. In order to make a decision more attainable, the law always imposes the burden of proof on the Commonwealth to establish every essential element of each indictment beyond a reasonable doubt. If you are left with a reasonable doubt as to any essential element of any indictment, then the defendant is entitled to the benefit of that doubt and must be found not guilty on that indictment. In conferring together, you ought to give proper respect to each other's opinions and listen with an open mind to each other's arguments. Where there is disagreement, those jurors who would find the defendant not guilty should consider whether the doubt in their own minds is a reasonable one, if it makes no impression upon the minds of the other jurors, who are equally honest and equally intelligent, who have heard the same evidence with the same attention, who have an equal desire to arrive at the truth, and who have taken the same oath as jurors. At the same time, those jurors who would find the defendant guilty ought seriously to ask themselves whether they may not reasonably doubt the correctness of their judgment if it is not shared by other members of the jury. They should ask themselves whether they should distrust the weight or sufficiency of the evidence if it has failed to convince the minds of their fellow jurors beyond a reasonable doubt. I will now ask you, Mr. Foreman, and members of the jury to return to your deliberations with these instructions in mind. And as with my final instructions and the supplemental instructions I sent in, I will send in a copy of this charge as well. All right, so may that be marked, Madam Court Reporter, please. All right, so thank you. We'll send you folks back out to deliberate.
All rise for the court, please. Jurors, follow me.
You are muted. Goodbye.
Then the juries go back to deliberate. 25 hours pass. Nothing. 26 hours pass. And finally, they send a note to the judge. They're ready to come back out.
You are unmuted.
Thank you. Be seated. Closing session.
22-117 Commonwealth versus Karen Reed.
All right, the jury is at an impasse. So we'll bring them in.
Please rise for the jury. Closing session. Please be seated.
All right, Mr. Foreman, I am in receipt of your note. Judge Cannoni, despite our rigorous efforts, we continue to find ourselves at an impasse. Our perspectives on the evidence are starkly divided. Some members of the jury firmly believe that the evidence surpasses the burden of proof, establishing the elements of the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Conversely, others find the evidence fails to meet this standard and does not sufficiently establish the necessary elements of the charges. The deep division is not due to a lack of effort or diligence, but rather a sincere adherence to our individual principles and moral convictions. To continue to deliberate would be futile and only serve to force us to compromise these deeply held beliefs. I'm not going to do that to you folks. Your service is complete. I'm declaring a mistrial in this case. I'll be in to see you privately in a few minutes. So thank you so much for your service. Okay.
All rise for the court, please. Jurors, follow me. Thank you. Be seated. Court is still in session.
All right, I'd like to pick a status date to find out what our next move is. So I'd like to come back sometime maybe the end of July. I understand people have vacation schedules. Can we come in the week of the 21st?
That's fine.
No, I'm just looking at my calendar. Could we do the 22nd at 2 p.m., Your Honor? And I would hear from my client.
Is there another day that week? Could you do the 25th or 26th?
Unfortunately, I think I'm supposed to be for vacation on the 25th.
Okay, the 22nd and the 24th are not great dates, so.
What about the 19th at 9? Is that whole week?
No, that week's not good. Teaching that I cannot get out of.
Can we do August 7th, 8th, 9th? Any of those days?
No, we'll do the 22nd. We'll go back to the 22nd at 2. I can't let it go that long.
Your Honor, so the court knows Ms. Little and I are not available on the 22nd. We have a hearing in Los Angeles on the 22nd.
Okay.
We're proposing to appear remotely anyway.
Okay.
But for a status conference, I don't want the court to think it's disrespectful to the court, but we will not.
Okay. So you and your client will be here in person, Ms. Giannetti.
Yes.
All right. All right. Thank you. We'll see you then.
All rise.
And that's it. That's a wrap for now. And we get to see Karen hugging her father here. Very happy. And then hugging her mom after that. So the defense team takes this as a win. Oh, that's not her mom. That's somebody else. I don't know. That's the dad hugging Elizabeth Little. That's the mom, Karen's mom, hugging Yannetti, David Yannetti. Then Alan Jackson hugging Karen's dad. So they're quite pleased. This means that Karen is essentially free at the moment. The Commonwealth said later, which you'll see, they do plan to retry this case, and Karen will be out continuing on her bail or her bond or whatever. So later you'll see that the O'Keefe family does come out later. So they're quite pleased, and I think it was the right thing because I feel like there was too much reasonable doubt. So I agree. It sucks, but that's the end of the case for now. Till they recharge her, if they do. And zooming in, zooming out, one last shot of the Norfolk Courthouse fan, our security fan, while we waited.
Saying the prosecution failed from the course of this trial until today's end result. Then out here today, every day, right? It's been beautiful sunny weather. The defense attorneys have been very forthcoming about speaking to the media, even celebrating what they called their wins over the course of this trial. Today, you come outside, it's absolutely downpouring rain, some thunder, and then the defense attorneys came out. Alan Jackson gave a very, very brief statement, didn't take any questions. David Yannetti also gave a very, very brief statement. Both of them really to a degree calling this a victory on their end and saying the prosecution failed different environment out here, and that, you know, we tried to ask Karen Reed how she felt now that this actually isn't over. Over the course of this trial, she's been willing to speak with reporters. I've spoken with her many times outside, and she's said, I just can't wait for this to be over. It's not over. You know, a mistrial is the opposite of this being over. There's already another court date for the end of this month scheduled, and Karen Reed said nothing on her way out of court. We don't know if the O'Keefe family maybe exited privately. They have been very private in not speaking with media folks or really engaging in anything going on outside of this courthouse. And as you know, there has been so much activity outside of this courthouse, so we don't know if they'll be coming out this front door or if they exited privately out the back door. But, you know, you go through a trial that lasts this long and all parties involved, you know, just wanted some kind of resolution. Obviously, they wanted different resolutions, and this really provides no resolution, no closure for anybody here. So we're outside the courthouse now. We're kind of waiting to see what happens, reaction from folks involved in this case, and we're going to bring it all to you as it comes.
WBZ's Christina Rex reporting live outside of the courthouse in Dedham. We do want to just say,
We're starkly divided. Compromise these deeply.
Told to rise.
All going forward. Closure, and even though it's a mistrial and there is some eruption, I don't know if they got that closure today.
And we're now getting ready to hear from Karen Reed for the first time after this has been declared a mistrial. Let's listen.
Quick reaction.
Yes, quick reaction. Yeah, they went to the steps.
Happen in court and what.
And we're going to.
We want to send a message to all.
Listen.
This is what.
We do have some new sound from Karen Reed right outside of the courtroom after this announcement. Let's take a listen.
The Commonwealth did their worst. They brought the weight of the state based on spurious charges, based on compromised investigators and compromised witnesses. This is what it. Guess what? They failed. They failed miserably, and they'll continue to fail. No matter how long it takes, no matter how long they keep trying, we will stop fighting. We have no quit.
Alan, you're going to stay on?
Go ahead. I just have two things to say, folks. Number one, I am in awe of.
The Commonwealth did their worst. They brought the weight of the state based on spurious charges, based on compromised investigators and compromised witnesses. This is what it. Guess what? They failed. They failed miserably, and they'll continue to fail. No matter how long it takes, no matter how long they keep trying, we will stop fighting. We have no quit.
Alan, you're going to stay on?
Go ahead. I just have two things to say, folks. Number one, I am in awe of the strength and courage of this remarkable client that I've had the privilege of representing since day one. And number two, I want to send a message to all of her supporters out there. Your support was invaluable. We are touched, and we ask for your continued support. I'm not from Texas, like my colleague here. I'm a Boston kid, but I'll repeat what he said, which is, we ain't got no quit.
And what you just heard there, you're hearing from Karen Reed's legal team. Now, Cheryl, we have talked a lot about, Rex included, that there's no resolution here. There's no conclusion, but the tone we're hearing there sounds like a celebratory one. You just heard, remember her legal team say, you know, we ain't got no quit, and they're thankful to the supporters.
Right. Right. And you know, they're saying that they believe that the prosecution failed. So they're considering the mistrial a win for them. Mm-hmm. Tammy, you talk.
Yeah, Courtney, that statement from the Norfolk County DA's office.
We haven't heard from them yet.
No, we have not heard from them yet. And we haven't heard from, you know, the O'Keefe family, and we haven't heard from the prosecution, other than we did get that email saying that they do plan to retry her.
Now, right now, we do want to get you back out to WBZ's Christina Rex. She is outside of the courthouse in Dedham right now. Christina.
Yeah, Courtney, that statement from the Norfolk County DA's office, which you've read on the air, I would just love to read it again one more time. We didn't even know we'd be hearing from them this quickly. So they said a mistrial has been declared in the matter of Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. Judge Beverly Cannoni set a status conference for a date of July 22nd at 2 p.m. in Norfolk Superior Court, this location. First, we want to thank the O'Keefe family for their commitment and dedication to this long process. They maintained sight of the true core of this case to find justice for John O'Keefe. The Commonwealth intends to retry the case. As early as 1 p.m. this afternoon, we were in contact with representatives from the Norfolk County DA's office asking if they've thought about whether or not they plan to retry this case, if they think they're going to be releasing a statement if there is a mistrial declared. And they didn't know, or that we were told that they didn't know yet. So to already have that statement saying not only do we want to thank the O'Keefe family and have a response to the mistrial being declared here, but they do intend to retry this case. It's certainly interesting. And also incredibly interesting is the note from the jury. You know, there's been 3 notes from the jury over the course of deliberations saying that they're deadlocked. This last one saying that they're at an impasse. And those notes signifying that some members were the term, some members of the jury just feel polarizingly opposite about the facts of this case. I spoke with our legal analyst who we talk to all the time about this case, Jennifer Roman, 3 business days ago, I think it was on Thursday, and she said to me she had been worried from the beginning that this could be a hung jury. And I said, why? And she said, well, you go to a dinner party with 10 friends and you bring up this case, and you can have 3 or 4 people who feel one thing, 5 or 6 people who feel another, and who cannot convince each other to feel otherwise. And she said, our jurors are a reflection of our community. This is a jury handpicked from Norfolk County. They live in this area. And she, Jennifer Roman, I'm speaking about our legal analyst, was not surprised at all to hear that they have fundamental disagreements about some of the facts and in this case and whether or not the Commonwealth had proved it beyond a reasonable doubt. And I said this earlier when I spoke with both of you, but I really can't overstate just how different today feels, and honestly the last 5 days of deliberations, but particularly today compared to the rest of this trial. The heaviness in that courtroom was potent. To come outside in the rain, to have no interviews with anyone involved in the case, just quick statements and everybody rush out of here. And in that courtroom, the 2 sides that you were hearing could not have been more different. As the judge said, I'm declaring a mistrial, you heard a sigh in the courtroom, not a sigh of relief, like a sigh. And you saw Mrs. O'Keefe crying, you saw other members of the O'Keefe family crying, and then through the windows outside, you heard cheers. You heard just loud yelling, wooing, which we've been able to hear many times over the course of this whole trial because the courtroom is right on the corner of the courthouse. So whenever there's been a siren or cheers from the group outside, even though they're past some 200-foot buffer zone, those cheers you can hear inside that courtroom. So to have those 2 sides happen as a mistrial was declared, just can't really overstate how it was. Cheryl and Courtney?
WBZ's Christina Rex, thank you. And I think that she pointed out 2 interesting things. One, that we weren't expecting to hear from the DA's office this quickly. And I think that gives good perspective to our viewers who are not necessarily a part of the legal world. Maybe they haven't been following the case this entire time, so they don't know that we weren't necessarily expecting to hear from the DA's office. But also, she's letting us know that how different today feels. The feeling has been such an important part of this storytelling for our viewers.
Well, but I think that's normal. I mean, when you get to the point where a jury is deliberating, that's when it becomes really real. I mean, while the testimony is going on, it's part of the process. And now you get to the end of the process, and there's a lot riding on this. Her freedom, Karen Reed's freedom is riding on this. John O'Keefe's family wants justice, and they believe justice is a guilty verdict in this case. So you can understand the pressure that everybody is feeling. You can also understand the weight of all of that and the responsibility that these jurors feel to come to a decision.
Guys, if you can hear me, take our live shot.
Coming out of court now, so let's
responsibility that these jurors feel to
talking to our crew in the field right now. We want to get you back out to the courtroom. We are being told that the O'Keefe family is coming out of court now, so let's just wait a moment. But while we are waiting, this is again just a reminder that this is not over. This is not over for the O'Keefe family. It's not over for the Reed family, friends, supporters.
And you can imagine. I mean, this is you saw the emotion. We showed you the video inside the courtroom. The O'Keefe family very emotional about the mistrial. The Karen Reed's family very emotional about the mistrial, and also knowing that there's still another process that they all have to go through again. So no, this is not the end for anyone in this case. You can see them filing down the courthouse stairs right there with family. Difficult day all around. I mean, at the end of the day, someone died here, so it's very sad.
Now we do have Christina Rex
Cheryl
back
and Courtney, if you
on
can
the
hear
line.
me.
Yes.
It's Christina Rex out here, next to the camera right now. We wanted to make sure you could see the O'Keefe family. Clearly, they waited inside to let a little bit of time pass, but some of the people who have been here every day were the ones in the courtroom. That's Paul O'Keefe, John's youngest brother, the only living O'Keefe child in this family now, after John's sister passed of cancer about 10 years ago as well. His wife, Erin, has been here every single day. His mother, John's mother, Peggy O'Keefe, has been here every single day. His father, John O'Keefe, has been here many days. I did not see him with the group here today. Some good friends of his, some cousins, some other relatives have been here every day. Really a pretty emotional moment for them in the courtroom, and then you could just see them there leaving court. It's clearly a sad day for everybody here on all sides.
Absolutely. At this point, you said that the family was very emotional today. Had you seen that type of emotion during the course of the trial at all?
Yeah, so I would say
to convict. It's not, but you get what cooked up charges, not going to come to a verdict either. All right, let's take a second now to watch this clip on the courtroom steps of Karen Reed and her attorneys and what they had to say about this case and about the outcome. Here we go.
Folks, this is what it looks like when you bring false charges against an innocent person. The Commonwealth did their worst. They brought the weight of the state based on spurious charges, based on compromised investigation and investigators and compromised witnesses. This is what it looks like. And guess what? They failed. They failed miserably, and they'll continue to fail.
So again, still preaching innocence, cooked up charges, forcing something that doesn't fit, and they failed miserably because, again, a prosecutor's job is to convict. It's not, but you get what they're saying when they kind of leave that out there and saying they failed, and you can clearly say they failed because they were coming in here saying she did it. They have all the power. They have all the resources. They make the decision whether or not to charge. And guess what? They charged her. They said she was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. They said they were going to be able to prove it, and they failed. Now, it's disregarding that they have publicly said, we're going to win. She's innocent. We're going to prove it. We're going to prove the conspiracy. Wait our turn. And again, I didn't think they needed to say all that because there's a ton of reasonable doubt. And I think they did an excellent job of pointing that out. But this is what it sounds like for a defense attorney to say a hung jury is a win. And this is what a lot of defense attorneys say. Now, I kind of expected them to win by the end of the trial, which is the only reason why it's a little bit different than most circumstances. It's a home run for a hung jury, or at least a triple for a hung jury for a defense attorney. I don't know that I felt that way in this case. You guys let me know if you disagree in the comments. He obviously is taking it as a win and a failure on their part.
No matter how long it takes, no matter how long they keep trying, we will not stop fighting. We have no quit. Go ahead.
We will not stop fighting no matter what they do. And we already know they're going to retry her, so they're going to keep fighting. They have no quit. Then I heard somebody say from the crowd, I don't know if you guys heard somebody say from the crowd, Alan, will you be staying on? And he lets Yannetti go in front of the mic and talk now. So that's a big question that's still open and more to come on that.
I just have two things to say, folks. Number one, I am in awe of the strength and courage of this remarkable client that I've had the privilege of representing since day one. And
a little cheeky there that I think it's kind of a wink to the public watching, and he's not done. He's going to do a lot more than a wink to the public support for Karen Reed and how important it has been to this trial, which is interesting. And we're going to discuss this comment after.
Number two, I want to see a client that I've had the privilege of representing since day one. And number two, I want to send a message to all of her supporters out there. Your support was invaluable. We are touched, and we ask for your continued support. I'm not from Texas, like my colleague here. I'm a Boston kid, but I'll repeat what he said, which is, we ain't got no quit.
So again, no answer to will Jackson stay on. We're going to listen to the whole clip. It's only 1 minute. I'm going to listen to it again so you guys can hear it without me pausing it and interrupting it. But think about what he says and listen to what he says. And we're going to roll that into what's going to happen after they walk off these steps.
Folks, this is what it looks like when you bring false charges against an innocent person. The Commonwealth did their worst. They brought the weight of the state based on spurious charges, based on compromised investigation and investigators and compromised witnesses. This is what it looks like. And guess what? They failed. They failed miserably, and they'll continue to fail. No matter how long it takes, no matter how long they keep trying, we will not stop fighting. We have no quit. Go ahead.
I just have two things to say, folks. Number one, I am in awe of the strength and courage of this remarkable client that I've had the privilege of representing since day one. And number two, I want to send a message to all of her supporters out there. Your support was invaluable. We are touched, and we ask for your continued support. I'm not from Texas, like my colleague here. I'm a Boston kid. But I'll repeat what he said, which is, we ain't got no quit.
All right. So that's the comment in full. To me,
Get lovedreamingpeach.com.